Hello, I'm David Groninger here in sunny and warm Seattle, Washington. I have behind me the love of my life, my grand piano, and on this side is a bust of one of my idols, Franz Schubert, one of my esteemed colleagues and mentors in the world of classical music. Well, the title of this talk is Tips on How to Love Your Job. But before I give this talk, I want to tell you a short story about some people who were on a bus. And the bus was kind of noisy, so it was kind of hard for them to hear. But one of them said, he looked outside and said, it sure is windy. And the other person said, no, I think you're mistaken. I believe it's Thursday today. And then the third person said, I sure am too. I sure wish they served drinks on the bus. Well, what we had there was a little bit of a failure to communicate. I sometimes think of the early explorers that wanted to come from Europe they wanted to cross the Atlantic Ocean, but at first they were told that they would never make it, that the earth was flat, and that they would reach the edge of the earth and just fall off. But somehow or another, they made it across the Atlantic Ocean, and what do you know? They discovered this wonderful continent of North and South America. And then later on, some of the explorers who went from the East Coast to the West, they were also warned about the dangers in making the crossing from the East Coast to the West Coast. They were told, they have grizzly bears 20 feet high. They have mountains that are so high that come straight up and it's impossible to climb them. Temperatures that will freeze everybody. Whatever it was, they were fears, stories. But Lewis and Clark and a lot of the settlers and explorers that came after them, they got from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they had a good time. Well, people told me before I came here to Seattle, they said, oh, David, you're not going to like Seattle, because in Seattle it's cold and dreary and damp and, it's, cloudy. But then I came to Seattle and I discovered, just like the explorers that crossed the Atlantic and the settlers that came from the East Coast to the West Coast, I discovered that it was just fine. And I found that it was sunny and warm all the time. Now, the reason it was sunny, I figured this way. You see, if we as human beings, and if the life on Earth kind of came from this planet, the oceans in this planet, and if our planet actually came from the sun, then we're kind of a piece of the sun. So it's like we are a little sun. So I figured that it's always sunny here because every time when you interact with another person and you shine your light on them just a little bit, bring out the best you have in the quality of service that you can perform and in the kindness and compassion and helpfulness in any way toward others, in a sense you're letting your little sun shine. And every time you give somebody else the space to grow in, give somebody a little bit of patience, a little bit of kindness and compassion, and find out what they love to do and where they want to go and help them get there, you're bringing out the sunshine in them too. So I found out that it was always sunny, and I found out that it was always warm, because as soon as I got here, I got out of my warm car and went into a warm apartment, took a warm shower, and then somebody called me up and was going to invite me to a party at their home. So I got back in my warm car, went inside their warm house, and while I was there, I interacted with all these people, and we were all sharing our inner sunshine, so it was sunny and even more warm. And then I got back in my warm car and came back to my warm apartment and got in my warm bed, and I thought, there must have been a failure to communicate somehow when people told me that it was damp and dark and dreary here in Seattle, Washington, because I found that it was sunny and warm, and it has been ever since I got here. Well, except for maybe a couple of days, but for the most part, it has been. Well, I'm going to give this talk now, and it's called Tips on How to Enjoy Your Job. And I'm going to give you just two tips. And one is to love your job more, and do this by loving yourself more. Do things that make you happy. Do what you love to do. Find ways that you can do your job in a way where you're more loving toward yourself and more loving to other people while you're there. And the other tip is to become more educated, become more trained, become more knowledgeable, increase your skill level, your level of proficiency, your level of effectiveness at your job. The better you're able to do your job, the less stress is there and the more happy you're going to be. Plus, when you go for the being happy in life, you're going to take a lot of this happiness to work with you, and the happier you are, the more joyful you can be, and the more joyful that you can approach the work tasks, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable it might seem. You can always find a way to do it just a little bit more joyful. So these are my two tips. And I call it an infusion in your job. You're going to give your job an infusion of joy and an infusion of wisdom. So I call the infusion of joy a joy fusion. So you're going to give to your job a joy fusion, and you're going to give to your job a wisdom fusion. Abraham Lincoln had a quote that goes, "If I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 6 sharpening my axe." So if he has 8 hours to do a task, he's saying spend the first 6 hours just getting sharp. Just get your tools ready. Just get really sharp. Sharpen your axe. So when the actual work has to take place of chopping down the tree, it'll be a lot easier. So when you think about the infusion of joy and the infusion of wisdom into your job, it's going to make your job go a little bit better. Think about the time management of your work. When you're there, let's say for 8 hours, normally your boss, or if you're the boss, you might not be allowed to spend the first 6 hours sharpening your axe, or just, doing a love or joy fusion or a wisdom fusion into your job. You might have to spend all 8 hours, maybe more, just working. But if you can spend some time there actively getting trained each day, and if you can spend some time there, even on a lunch break, figuring out how you can enjoy the work just a little bit more, then I think that you're going to be doing somewhat of what Abraham Lincoln had in mind. You're going to become more effective at your work. It's going to become easier for you, and it's because you were mindful of sharpening your axe, sharpening your skills, sharpening your effectiveness level, whatever techniques or technology of work that you're doing. You're going to be just a little bit better at it. There are many people in this world who can help you get trained on how to do a better job at your place of work, in neighboring communities around the world. The population of the world is 7 billion people. And in the United States, that's 300 million people. Here in this country, we are less than 5% of the world population. 95%, more than 95% of the world is not in America, and probably 90% of the world has never been to America. So consider, as you become more educated, trained, skilled, this wisdom you're going to accumulate to infuse into your work. Don't be limited just by your city, your town. Look worldwide as well. There are many, many people that want to help you. People who have already, very accomplished people who take a lot of pride in being able to help another person along. So basically we're talking about time management. If you are struggling at something in life and you're having a hard time at it, and you're spending 100% of your time struggling, why not just spend 80% of your time struggling and spend 20% of your time finding a way to reduce the struggle? And that's why, you might spend 8 hours at your job and then maybe 1 hour getting training there or learning to love it more. Or as I said, if you have to spend all 8 hours there actively working at something, then take a little bit of time during your week, nights and weekends, and keep a journal on what you learn. Keep a journal on how you can be more joyful in life, and document what works and what doesn't work, and keep a journal on what you're learning from the people who are teaching you how to do a better job or a more effective job where you are. Well, in closing, might I just say that when you do a joy fusion and a wisdom fusion in the workplace, this is going to have a positive effect in every part of life, in the home life, in your social life, in your hobbies, in your creative endeavors. Because in a sense, the workplace is your home life, and your home life is the workplace. Because as they say, wherever you go, there you are. But in a sense, you are the creator of your of the quality of your interaction with other people wherever you go. So keep in mind that it's not easy to separate home and work, and that the advantage of all this is every bit of work you do in order to become more proficient and happy at work is going to have a positive effect in your home life. And everything you do in your home life to become more joyful and loving and happy there is going to have a positive infusion or influence in the work life. So in closing, let me again repeat Abraham Lincoln's quote that I've always enjoyed, which is, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 6 sharpening my axe. So if you have 8 hours each day to perform a task at work, spend some of the time sharpening your skills. Spend some of the time with learning how to be more loving toward yourself and others and in your approach to the work, and spend some of the time learning how to become more skillful, more proficient, more efficient, more productive, and turning out better quality and quantity of the work. Thank you very, very much for listening. This concludes the talk on 2 tips on how to enjoy your work. This is David Groninger in sunny and warm Seattle, signing off for now, wishing you a higher quality of experience in the workplace by doing this joy fusion and the wisdom fusion. And remember one other thing too, this joy fusion, or the amount of joy and the amount of wisdom that you can focus into your work are infinite. There's an infinite supply of joy in this world and love. There's an infinite supply of wisdom. And of these 7 billion people on this planet, you're not even going to be able to meet a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a percent, even of the ones who do your kind of work. So realize that there are, in many respects, there is an unlimited number of people who are there to help you do the wisdom fusion into your job. And there is an unlimited amount of joy and love in this world if you just focus on it and build upon it to do the joy fusion into your work. This is David Groninger saying goodbye. Thank you very much.